Hey, you. My name is Jer, and I can't shut up about the fact that social media doesn't have to suck as much as it seems to these days. In this video, I want to share with you about Mastodon, an option that I think doesn't suck, that actually works really well when you put the time in. I'm going to talk about what I think makes it good, what I think makes it different from all of the ultra and shitified social media options that we normally consider. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges involved in it because I want to take those seriously because it's not always easy mode, even though I think it is rewarding mode, just like hard mode on a lot of things. And I'm going to give some really practical tips about how to get started, how to make the most of it, and how to not fall off it once you get started. So thank you for joining me. I hope you're interested in this topic, and let's go. Nice and quick, because I don't want to dwell on it. What the hell is Mastodon? It's pretty simple. It's Twitter. It's what Twitter used to be, except instead of having everyone on one server together and you follow people and they follow you, there's different servers. So it's more like if you could follow people from Facebook on Twitter, but that they used a common language to communicate with each other, except that it's multiple servers of Mastodon all communicating with each other. So the worst complication is sometimes it's confusing because like the websites for each server are separate, but at the end of the day, once you're inside of an app and you follow people and you see someone, like someone boosts someone else and you see that message, you can follow that person as easy as on Twitter. It's all about short posts, longer than Twitter, but still pretty short. And that's about it. So as a normal user, what I would tell someone is it's like Twitter, but it's more open. There's more options and there's multiple servers. So there's lots of places people are coming from. So if you want to be able to follow people who are posting quickly and then reply to each other and have conversations, it's that. What makes it so good? Why would you bother with Mastodon when clearly it's not the easiest option out there? For me, the most important thing is the lack of an algorithm. Okay, we all know what algorithms are. It's that mysterious computer program that decides what you're going to see on any given day when you open up a social media site like Facebook or Twitter or TikTok is the most famous one because it's pure algorithm. But basically all of them these days, when you open them up, if there's some way to just see the things that your friends are posting in order, it's usually hidden and they'll always take it back from you, right? Whereas on Mastodon, that is the default, right? You choose who you follow and then you see their posts in order. Like maybe someone has a Mastodon app that has an algorithm and you could make one, someone could make one, and I know people are. But that's not how you use it by default. And that's not how the apps work. And that's not really what I recommend. I think the algorithm, even though it has benefits, I when I first got to Mastodon, I thought, oh, I need that algorithm. Like, I don't know what to look at. I feel like I'm missing good stuff by seeing everything. And the thing that I've found, the more I've used it over time, is it's not a benefit. It makes it harder to use. It makes it less satisfying to use. And it also shows you a bunch of crap you don't want to see. And if you've seen crap you don't want to see on social media sites like Instagram, which just has gotten worse and worse in this regard, and to the point where I can't even use it anymore, on Mastodon, it's not like that. You just follow people and you see what they post. This is like, for the old people like me, this is what Twitter was like if you joined back in 2007, 2008, 2009. It was a bit more work. You had to find people to follow or there was nothing to look at, but then you could really interact with them. You would see all of their posts and it was just so much more meaningful and predictable. And you just didn't see random crap you didn't want to. You know, people boost each other. So that's the algorithm is. On Mastodon, you retweet, it's called boosting. And that is how you find new people. That is how you see things that aren't from the people you follow. But it's always something chosen by the people you follow. And I just think it is a revolution to just de-evolution. Like we are going backwards in a good way because while those algorithms can sometimes feel good, they ultimately homogenize the experience of using the social network to the point where you don't have any more control. And honestly, I think it is a huge benefit of Mastodon. if you give it time. The second thing I think is really valuable, and it has to do with the first, is the fact that you can just see news. You can see news links to articles, all kinds of links to go outside of the service. Links aren't forbidden on Facebook or on Twitter, but they sort of are, aren't they? They're like shadow banned. It's like you can post a link, but you're not going to get nearly as many likes as if you just post an image of the headline, right? And that is so toxic for our ability to share information with each other, in my opinion, on all these algorithmically driven services like Twitter and Facebook in particular, the two big ones. And the threads, Facebook's new thing to clone Twitter, and which theoretically is part of the Fediverse like Mastodon and may or may not be interoperable with Mastodon. I don't care. I don't want to use it because they've specifically said they don't want news content in there. I think they're afraid of moderating news or something, but I don't care. The people I follow, they will moderate the news for me. They will choose which articles are interesting and important, and then I will choose based on what they boost or post to look at it. And I don't think this should be controversial. I think it's extremely natural. That's how it worked back in the day on Twitter. But then slowly the algorithm starts deciding, and the algorithm shows you the shit posts and the memes instead. And the algorithm, right, it has a strong bias. If you're Twitter or Facebook, you don't want people clicking links, going to news sites and staying there, right? You want them to come back to Facebook and scroll Facebook, right? And look, I want to scroll, right? This is a video about telling you, hey, did you know there's a good way to scroll? Scrolling is rewarding. But for me, one of the things that makes it rewarding is when I can learn, when I can gain information in exchange for my time. And Mastodon is so much better simply because when someone posts a link, I can see it, I can read it, I can learn from it. Personally, I send them to Instapaper and then I have it read them out loud to me later when I'm exercising. But whatever you want to do, it gives you articles. And when I share an article, I do so knowing that people can actually see it. Whereas when I share it on Facebook, I do it saying 2 people are going to like this. Whereas if I post a selfie, I'll get 10 times as much feedback. And the reason is simply that Facebook doesn't show it to people. It doesn't matter how good it is. And that's toxic. So no algorithm is good. And the best part is without an algorithm, there's no way for the service to shadow ban your links. And I have been really enjoying and finding so much more value in my time on social media when I'm using Mastodon without that problem. Number 3 of my top 3 favorite things about Mastodon, no ads. Is that controversial? You got to pay for it somehow. And if you're on Mastodon, you should go make a donation to your server host because it's very expensive to host Mastodon. It's not cheap, just like any social media site. It's not cheap to host. But the reality is there's no ads. There's lots of servers with no ads. Someone can set up a server with ads if they want to, and then try and get people to join. But I don't see why they would, because there's wonderful free servers without ads, and there'll never be ads pretty much. The only promotion you're going to see is things people choose to put in your feed. So businesses can operate there. They can promote their content, and they do. Individuals can try and sell their things to you, their jewelry or their LUTs or whatever it is that you might want. But they cannot pay to put it in front of you. So they have to earn your time, and it's just better. Simple. Right now, Threads, currently in, it's February 2024, Threads, the Facebook clone of Twitter, which is potentially going to join the Fediverse and be compatible with Mastodon, they don't have ads, but they will. They will one day. They're just hoping to become popular and lure people in without ads and then add them later once you're already sort of addicted or like committed to it. And that's not going to happen with Mastodon. This is a benefit that it's kind of easy to take for granted once you get used to it. When I go back to Instagram or Facebook, I'm just like, oh my God, I've got so used to seeing all those ads and all of it. And it doesn't have to be that way. So consider it, right? Wouldn't it be nice? And a bonus 4th benefit of Mastodon, so many third-party clients, so many ways to interact with that content compared to all the mainstream apps, which have been more and more cutting off any third-party apps. Reddit stopped having third-party apps. Twitter stopped having third-party apps. Facebook never really had third-party apps. The ability to just choose your preferred interface is really valuable. This was something that Twitter really benefited from for a long time, and it's totally normal in Mastodon. The default app works. It's fine. The one called Mastodon that you find if you go to the App Store. But honestly, I don't recommend it. We'll talk about apps a little later. But there you go. The simple fact of having the option to use an app that emphasizes one thing or another. There's apps that are good for businesses that have a lot going on and they want to manage a million things, the tweet deck style. And there's apps that are just like just one thing. It's great to be able to invest in a service, invest in my social network and following people and finding people, knowing that if the app I'm using stops working, I can jump to another app. Just like when you're surfing the web, you can jump to a different browser, and it's not going to change all your relationships you have with websites. Okay, so have I sold you? It sounds good. No ads. You get news. You see the people you follow. What are the downsides? The main downside to me is without an algorithm, you got to follow people. You got to pick people to follow, and then you're going to see their posts. Now, if you're brand new and you don't know who to follow, that can be a challenge because if you log in and you don't see anything, that's tricky. So you just got to invest in it, right? You got to put some time in. That's what we all did back in the day on Twitter, and it was a lot better. Until I got to Mastodon, I didn't realize how much I missed that early version of Twitter where what you follow is what you see. But I also struggled a little bit to find people. I got lucky. It's good to find a community, like a group that's talking about something you're interested in and start following different people. For me, that was the WordPress, which is like web development community, that there's a lot of those people because that's an open source scene and Mastodon is open source and all that. Also, all the Mac OS, like Apple people kind of migrated over because they hate Elon Musk sufficiently to do so. But you find what you're interested in. I'm going to talk later about hashtags and stuff, but it is a challenge. It's not easy because a lot of people join and then they don't follow anyone. And then they're like, I couldn't figure it out. And it's like, it's not complicated. You just got to follow people and then get a feed going. And then once you have a feed going, following more people is easy because the people will be boosting content. And then you see something interesting that was boosted and you follow the person and then see what happens. If you don't like it, you unfollow them. Anyway, I'll talk more about that later, but I wanted to address like the elephant, the mastodon in the room is finding people to follow, because when there's an algorithm, it force feeds you people to follow. It's going to give you celebrities and trending bullshit and stuff like that. And it is content, but it's low quality, right? And so that's why I think this negative is a positive. The time you take following people is time you take making yourself a feed that actually matters to you and is quality. The next downside that we have to overcome to enjoy Mastodon is federation, right? Federation is the word for the different servers communicating with each other, that thing I was talking about before. It's not simple, and I don't think you need to understand it all in order to use Mastodon, right? So my first thing is, don't think you have to understand that. Just join mastodon.social, the biggest server, which is something I'm going to talk about later. But at the same time, I confess, if you join, especially if you're using the websites, it can get confusing and it can be hard to know how to follow people and how to find people. But really, it's okay. You just got to relax, get in an app and search, and you're going to find what you need. Things work okay once you get going, but the sign up process, choosing a server, all that, it's a downside, and it's something we need to get over, just like we got over the humps of figuring out how RSS works and figuring out the web in general. Like, there's a lot of things we take for granted about the web that are really complicated, but we just figure them out, like URLs and the Fediverse, right, which is the overall network of things that communicate with Mastodon, does take a little bit to get used to. But my advice is take baby steps and just enjoy it as you go and start with Mastodon, and it's not the end of the world. Okay, final, very meta thought about Mastodon and what the problems are is that moderation is our problem on Mastodon, on the Fediverse, on open social media. There's no bosses in charge of deciding what kind of speech is okay and what kind of speech is not okay. What I have found on Mastodon is the default servers, the biggest ones, are very progressive and inclusive and strict about what kind of content can exist, in the sense that you can't be racist, you can't be transphobic. Libs of TikTok is usually not welcome, unlike on the big platforms where, for whatever reason, it's interpreted that they have like a free speech right to go around harassing trans people and things like that. But it causes tension because we have to make those decisions. Someone has to make those decisions, and they're all volunteers, and there's no corporate way to make a decision. I think it's probably easier to make decisions like that by saying what's the most profitable and some balance of letting people in and out. Whereas on Mastodon, it has to be an ethical decision. Generally, it's made, decisions are made in terms of protecting vulnerable people. But at the end of the day, it's drama sometimes when those moderation things happen. And the whole thing of between servers, right? One of the hardest things about the communication between servers, the federation, is that some servers are blocked. There's some people you won't be able to follow because they're on a server that has one Nazi on it. But that one Nazi on that server means that the server you're on has blocked them. And the behavior can get random. So it's really not the end of the world, but it's worth knowing. I think, as always, all these negatives, I'm going to be arguing against them, even though I acknowledge them. The thing about this one is it's safer. It's better. So if you want to be a Nazi, it's actually kind of good, Mastodon, because there's a Nazi server just for you. You're not going to be able to talk with the mainstream servers because they're going to block you. But you can have your little Nazi echo chamber if you really want to. But the point being, it's a complication that you don't have to think about if you're on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. They're going to do all of it for you, and they're going to screw it up. And I'll say that, Mastodon is going to screw it up. Any given Mastodon server is going to make mistakes on moderation, of course. But overall, I think I trust people making decisions about safety over people making decisions about profit pretty much any day. There you go. You have a sense of what it is, some positives, some negatives. Now, some tips. How can I make it easier for you to enjoy it the way I am? First, I'm going to tell you 2 things that you don't have to follow, but you really should. 1, don't worry about which server to join. There's hundreds, thousands of servers, all these weird ones. You can make your own server and install it on your web host. Don't do any of that, okay? If you're just getting started, join mastodon.social. That's the default one, run by the people who make the open source software. I'm there. I got no complaints. It works fine. Everyone kind of defaults to making it work with you. This is the closest thing to just being on Facebook or Twitter. If you don't want to be on mastodon.social, there's a few other ones. mstdn.social sounds really similar, and it is. It's almost the same. There's another one, mas.to. Also, as far as I know, almost entirely generic. So you can pick it based on how long. I kind of wish I didn't have such a long name. I'm Jared Clark at mastodon.social. And when it's all spelled out, it's just a lot of letters. But anyway, those are all completely generic. At different times, you couldn't join mastodon.social. And that's kind of why the other ones exist, because it was like, we need more small ones. But now they've fixed these scaling problems. Like the problem was mastodon.social would be slow and it would crash because there was too many people. But right now, it's been rock solid for me. So just join that if you're not sure. It's going to give you a great default experience with relatively good safety and moderation and less problems, which I think is what people need when they're getting started. Another piece of advice, as soon as you have your account on one of those 3 domains I said, or whatever domain you want, but try those ones. Don't use the website. Don't use the website. It doesn't work well as a website because of how the protocol works. Some of the people you follow won't be on that website. They're on Mastodon, but they're elsewhere in the network. So get straight into an app. When you're using an app and you search for people, it'll search across servers. It's going to work so much better. And you could just click follow. You can boost their thing, retweet. You can reply. Everything just works in the app in a way that it doesn't on the website. And I think a lot of people get tripped up from using the websites. So find an app and use it. And that's great advice, except what the hell if I don't tell you some apps? So here's a couple apps that I think are really good. On iOS, the one I use is called Ivory. It's pretty expensive. It's got a yearly fee that's like no joke, but I really like how it works and I appreciate the people and it works really well across platform and stuff. So if you're an Apple user and you don't mind paying for great software, I recommend it. If you want a free one, there's one called Ice Cubes, and It's great. I've used it as well. I don't use it just because I have a yearly subscription to Ivory, but if I didn't, and next year I'm going to really ask myself because they've added so many of the features I was looking for. So I could really recommend Ice Cubes. The specific one that they didn't have that Ivory has is the syncing. I really love having an app that remembers my position. So when I open up the app, it knows exactly where I was. It knows how many toots is what you call the posts on Mastodon. So it knows how many toots I have not yet read and keeps track of them for me. And that's just really useful. And then if I open it up on my iPad in the same app, it'll jump, like it'll be like, oh, you're looking at posts from 3 weeks ago, but it'll zoom up to the exact position I was and remember what I haven't read. I do recommend that format, and Ice Cubes and Ivory have it. So those are great on iOS. As you might imagine, I don't use Android, so I don't have personal experience the way I do with these two on iOS. But the ones that I know a lot of people recommend, there's one called Tusky that is full featured and seems to have everything. I'm not sure if it has the syncing feature that I would personally consider a must have, but it works well and people like it. Another one I haven't tried myself is called Trunks app. And it has the syncing feature. And apparently that one is completely cross-platform. So maybe I'll try that later. And it works on iOS and Android and Mac. So if you're looking for something new to try, consider trying that one. Either way, what's most important is that you have some kind of app that you get used to it and that you try different ones. Like I said, one of the benefits is that there's so many. So download them all, try the ones you like, and follow my other advice in the process, and then eventually come back and try them again. And once you've got a good timeline going, see which app sort of fits your taste, because I think it really is. There's no one app that's right. It's up to the individual person, and that's a great thing about Mastodon and the Fediverse is that it's wide open like that. Okay, third piece of advice is something you can probably guess. I've said it already. Follow people. Follow as many people as you can. At first, do it shamelessly. My advice is you see anything you like at all, follow that person. When you see boosts, if you are following someone and they boost something, really ask yourself, hey, maybe this boosted person will be helpful. Once you follow someone, there's nothing stopping you from unfollowing them 10 seconds later if you see that they post too much, right? At first, you should be biased towards following as many people as possible. Later, you could focus on unfollowing the people who post things that are boring or post too much and ruin your balance. But at first, get those follows in and nothing else, follow people and then follow people they boost and then unfollow the first person if they're no good. You can also, another hot tip, mute. Muting people is magic. It's the way you control your own algorithm. You know, I have like 100 something people I follow. They'll post like 200 things per day. I try to read them all, but there's a few people I follow. Like sometimes there'll be 200 things in the day and like 60 of them are from a single person. And I'll be like, you know what, I love you. I want to see you later. I want to see you when I'm all caught up. But right now I am trying to catch up. And so I mute them, and in the app, in all the apps, there's like options. So I say mute for 6 hours. So just for the next little while, I'm going to skip some of the things you're boosting, some of the things you're posting, and then I'll catch up with you later. Figure out your own balance, design your own algorithm, which starts with following and then proceeds with muting and unfollowing as much as you want to. You decide the content, but you've got to make some decisions. Another aspect of this, if you're new and you're trying to build up your algorithm, is using hashtags. So of course, hashtags work like they do on Twitter. You click on one, you could see all the people posting about something. But something that's a little bit different is on any hashtag, you can click follow. And then anyone who uses that hashtag will show up in your timeline. So especially if you're brand new and you want to search for, you're into like furry detective novels, you find a hashtag on that topic, something that won't have too many posts, but where they'll all be at least a little bit interesting, and then follow it for a while. And you might want to unfollow it, especially if there's a lot of content, but following that for a little while can be a great way to find those people to follow. Follow the people who use it and then unfollow the hashtag if it's too much or whatever. But it's a great way to interact with people and use hashtags. I like anywhere, if no one is seeing your content, try to think of a hashtag that people will see and look at the hashtags people are using and then use those ones. And then you'll get some attention on your posts. For me, things like bloom scrolling, hashtag bloom scrolling, where people post flowers. A lot of people come and see my flowers. And if it's a good flower photo, I get some little attention and it feels good. So it's not always the most generic ones like hashtag photography, although that can work. But some of the more fun ones, like there's a like and subscribe, but it's the word lichen and it's people posting like moss and stuff. Anyway, don't pass on hashtags, both to use them in your post and to follow them to find new people that you can follow. Final tip on how to use Mastodon: boost. Do retweets of content and follow people who boost, right? Most people don't have enough to say to fill up your timeline, but one or two people that do a lot of boosting of interesting news and other toots can really make a difference in making Mastodon valuable. So take that into account and enjoy that feature and be a little shameless about it. Or I don't know. That's my advice. I think my experience was propped up by the people I followed who did a lot of boosting as I was getting started and developing my list of people I follow. So boost your heart out. All right. I think that's enough. As a final thought, I still use other social media. I check in, I go to Facebook and get a random ass algorithmically selected meme. And sometimes I like it and I post it on Mastodon. But I think it's worth putting a little time into your social media and then reaping the rewards. Nothing is free, even though Mastodon is free. It's not free. Like all open source things, like all things of value, you have to put something in to get something out. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've learned something. If you're new, if you're already experienced at Mastodon, I hope it didn't get too wrong. And maybe I gave you a little inspiration about how to get more out of it. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm Jer. I love you. Bye-bye.